The Lazy Peon. What's up guys, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. I'm the Lazy Peon, and today we're going to be counting 10 reasons Warlords of Draenor will be better than Mists of Pandaria. Starting with number 1. Expansion theme. The theme of an expansion is an important thing to consider because it sets the tone for the content that will be released over the expansion's lifespan. In Mists of Pandaria, the theme was very Asian oriented and set a very different mood to the previous Warcraft expansions. And overall, people didn't really like going from fighting evil to having a jolly old time drinking beer with pandas. But in Warlords of Draenor, it's going to feel a lot more like World of Warcraft, with us going back and fighting evil on a strange, unforgiving continent. The diverse art style between zones should stop players from feeling visual burnout, unlike in Mists of Pandaria where all of the zones were of a similar style. Overall, I think the Draenor theme will be popular with the player base because it's familiar and it's what we're used to in terms of story and setting. It could also make old players that have previously followed the Warcraft story feel a sense of nostalgia, experiencing quests with lore characters that have a rich and established backstory. Number 2. LFR won't be part of the gearing process. In Mists of Pandaria, once you hit level cap, you had to run heroic dungeons to get gear to get into LFR, and then run LFR to get gear to progress into flex and normal mode raiding. Many people also run LFR as a way to valor cap every week. In Warlords of Draenor, however, Blizzard have said they intend LFR to be its own separate progression path, instead of being a stepping stone into normal mode raiding. The balance in LFR around gear from normal mode level 100 dungeons, and taking tier sets away from LFR gear drops. With LFR being its own separate progression path, normal mode raiders can get geared in heroic dungeons, therefore reducing burnout from running the same raid on a different difficulty each week. Also, with Valor points being removed from the game, Warlords of Draenor is looking much more alt-friendly in terms of the gearing process. Number 3. New character models. With the release of the Pandaren race in Mists of Pandaria, it became obvious how dated the old character models looked in comparison to the newer models. So, in Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard have decided to give our old races a facelift and rebuild them from the ground up. Personally, I think the new models look awesome, and they should give WoW a more fresh, up-to-date look. There's also going to be new animations, which is really fun for you role players out there. Number 4. Garrisons. Garrisons are probably the biggest new feature added in Warlords of Draenor. It's basically player housing, Warcraft style. And judging by the comments in my last video, you guys are really looking forward to Garrisons too. Garrisons will give us something to do outside of PvP and raiding. They also have their own progression path where you can level up your garrison to gain access to new building plots and improved buildings. One feature of the garrison I'm particularly looking forward to is finding followers and sending them out on quests, dungeons and raids in return for loot. I think it's nice how it'll give you a reason to log in every day to keep your followers busy. Another thing you can do with garrisons is gain limited access to professions you don't have by building profession buildings, such as a blacksmith. This should give more flexibility to the profession system. Additionally, you'll also be given access to mini-garrisons known as outposts in each zone. Your quest path depends on what building you choose to build in your outpost, and you'll also receive a buff or an ability related to that building. This offers a nice bit of flexibility on your leveling path. Other garrison features include garrison defense quests, garrison dailies, and a choice of monuments or statues that can be placed in your garrison for decoration. Overall, I'm really looking forward to garrisons. They seem like a fun optional pastime that have a decent amount of depth, yet there's still room for further improvements in later patches. Number 5. Ashran. Now, Ashran has received a bit of negative feedback in regards to its size in the Warlords of Draenor beta, but I'm still looking forward to it. Ashran is basically an ongoing world PvP battle zone between the Horde and Alliance to secure an island with strategic advantage against the Iron Horde. Ashran's around the same size as Warsong Gulch and has side objectives that can be captured for additional reinforcements. Rewards for Ashran will include gear, cosmetics, and possibly mounts. I think Ashran will be fun because in Mists of Pandaria we didn't even have a world PvP zone, and more content is always good. Whether or not it will be as good as Wintergrasp or Tolbarad remains to be seen, but Blizzard have said they'd like to expand upon Ashran in future patches. Number 6. Dynamic leveling experience. In previous expansions, the leveling process has mainly consisted of questing with no rewards for doing bonus objectives or exploring the zone. While in Warlords of Draenor, the questing experience is going to be more dynamic, similar to the way the Timeless Isle works with rare mob spawns and hidden treasures. This is great because it keeps things interesting whilst leveling, and it rewards exploration. I also think it adds more replayability to zones, and it might make the task of leveling your alts less monotonous than it has been previously. Number 7. UI improvements. In Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard are making improvements to the user interface. There's quite a few changes, so I'll just read over them quickly. Mobs now highlight red, green or yellow upon mouse over, which is just to make it easier to select your target. The Omni CC add-ons function has now been added to the game, which is basically a countdown as your abilities come off cooldown. We now have a sorting function for our bags, and we can assign our bags for different things, which is great for organisation. There's going to be a toy box added to your interface, so you don't have to store your toys in your bags anymore, which should free up some more space. We now have a summon random favourite mount option, which is pretty cool. For PvP Arena, we now have a skirmish mode, so if you want to do Arena for fun, you can just do it in skirmish and not worry about losing your rating. We also have an improved dungeon journal, which is easier for new players to read, it's more to the point, and it's categorised better. The key bindings interface is also split up into sections now, which is just easier to navigate. We're going to have more bag space in Warlords of Draenor, because we're going to have larger stacks. Some things are going to stack up to 100, which is sweet. And quest items will not appear in your inventory, they'll appear somewhere else. We're going to get a group finder similar to OQ, which is basically a cross-realm way of finding people for raids, which is great for people that aren't in raiding guilds. Our map, you can now scroll in using your map and move the map around, which is just great for navigation and finding hidden treasures and things. The main storyline is also going to be visible on your map, which is great because if you lose track of the story, you know exactly where to go to pick it back up again. Overall, I think all these changes are good and should make things a lot more efficient when using your interface. Number 8. New raiding difficulty modes. So in Warlords of Draenor we're going to have 4 difficulties of raiding. LFR, Normal, Heroic and Mythic. Normal mode raiding will be the difficulty of the Flex mode raiding in Mists of Pandaria, Heroic raiding will be the equivalent of the Mists normal road raiding, and Mythic raiding will be the difficulty of the old 10 and 25 player Heroic raiding. However, Mythic raiding has a set raid size of 20 players. LFR, Normal and Heroic will each have flexible group sizes where the boss's health scales depending on the amount of people in your group. I think it's between 10 and 25 players or possibly 30 players, I'm not too sure. So what does this mean for raiding? Well, now the 10 and 25 man heroic difficulties have been consolidated into 20 man mythic, it means Blizzard will be able to design boss encounters better because they can assume the group will have at least one of each class. I think with there being one hardcore difficulty, we're also going to see a much more interesting and meaningful world first race. Another good thing about this raiding system is that players have more choice in choosing a raiding difficulty that suits them. And with LFR not being a stepping stone into normal mode raiding, new players are less likely to get sucked into the rut of only doing LFR under the illusion that it's real raiding. Another cool thing Blizzard are doing to incentivise players to push for progression is giving Mythic Raiders their own aesthetic in their tier sets, which I think is really cool because it might convince more players to at least give Mythic a try. Number 9. New file format CASC. Previously in WoW, Blizzard have used the file format known as MPQ to compress and store game files. This file format, however, is really outdated, so in Warlords of Draenor they're going to change it to a file format known as CASC, which is a more newer and efficient way to compress and store files. Basically, what this means for you is the game will run better, it'll be better optimised, you'll have a more stable frame rate, lower system requirements, and the patches will install faster and more smoothly, which is always good. Number 10. The lore. In comparison to Mists of Pandaria, the lore for Warlords is looking much stronger, with major lore characters playing a big part in the overall story. Right from the opening cinematic we see Grom Hellscream, Gul'dan, Manarov and Garrosh Hellscream changing the events of Warcraft 2 where the orcs drank the blood of Manarov. Not only is this a nostalgia overload for old Warcraft fans, but this sets the tone for the rest of the expansion. Here's a small list of lore characters we're going to see in Warlords of Draenor. Kairos, Kargath Bladefist, Blackhand, Garrosh and Grom Hellscream, Nazul, Kilrog, Gul'dan, Dorotan, Thrall, Velen, Khadgar and Murad. And there's probably a lot more that we don't know about yet. So the benefit of having major lore characters be a core part of the story is that players will actually care what's happening. It adds to the immersion of the game, and I can see a lot of old fans of the franchise returning because of this. In Mists of Pandaria, most people didn't really care much about the lore because there wasn't much backstory already established for the Pandaren or Pandaria. Thankfully though, Blizzard now seem to be going in the right direction in terms of lore. Okay guys, I'm an idiot. After I finished recording this video I realised there was a bunch of things I totally forgot to talk about. No flying, the ability prune, the item squish, dailies no longer being linked with gear progression, hard heroic dungeons, and non-linear raids. In hindsight, I should have made a top 15 or a top 16. But now we're going to read some viewer comments relating to the topics I forgot to talk about, starting with Gamer Zanzus. What would be better than Mop for a number of reasons? The improved questing system, the new character models, which I don't care about much but it will give a fresh feel to it, the no flying at the start of the expansion which will help improve the feeling of a big world, and also helps with world PvP, and most importantly in my opinion 20-man raiding, as it will help competitive raiders in comparing as opposed to the old 10-man and 25-man comparison. And with one set raid group I believe the mechanics will be able to achieve much more creative and fun bosses. Yeah, I totally agree with you. The world's going to feel way bigger with no flying. We're going to see more people on the ground. The world's going to feel more immersive and dangerous. And I also agree with what you have to say about the 20-man Mythic raiding. So thanks for the comment, Zanzus. Really appreciate it. Next up we have a comment from Nahaha Wow. I think WoD will be much better for new players. When a new player enters the game, they see pages and pages of spells. Some might think it's too complicated and quit right there, and WoD is predicted to help with that. Also, I like the idea of going back in time for people who didn't play Warcraft 3. They might get a nice feel of Draenor. So I think the main thing this comment's referring to is the ability prune, and I think it's definitely something that's needed as we're starting to run out of keybinds and action bar space, which is never a good thing. And it will definitely make things easier for new players. So thanks for the comment. Finally we have a comment from Heirloom. I think WoD will be better than Mop because it feels a lot more epic. They did a complete overhaul to the system of leveling, character looks, and they fixed what Mop mostly fucked up, aka LFR tier sets, LFR gear looking the same as normal, flexible and heroic, and a return of heroic dungeon difficulty. So in this comment Heirloom mentions a return of heroic dungeon difficulty and LFR not getting the same rewards as other raiding difficulties, and this is something I agree with and I'm pleased to see changed in Warlords. In Mists of Pandaria, Blizzard practically throws epics at bad players, making them feel like they've won the game just by finishing the latest LFR tier, giving them no reason to stick around. In Warlords though, they seem to be going back to the principle of working hard to get decent rewards, and this makes me a very happy peon. Well, that's it for this video, guys. Next week's vid will be top 10 armor sets in WoW. For a chance to have your comment featured in the next video, please tell me your favourite armor sets and give me a reason why. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask and I'll answer them in a future Q&A video. If you made it this far, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you guys.